Roger, can I just make a comment? You know the orange top that you've got on?
Yeah, red.
No, no, the orange one on top. Have you been in Guantanamo Bay? Because that's what the Guantanamo Bay people were.
It's not orange, it's red.
No, it's not. That's orange.
Orange.
It's orange. Yeah. Yeah. So,
Oh, geez.
so you must have released you from Guantanamo Bay, right? So, Roger, tell us your news, please. Boulder Cliff. Right, let's do an overview, Roger. Boulder Cliff, a massive site of settlement evidence. Loads of stuff. So, Roger, you, and obviously Mesolithic. Go on, Roger. You tell us.
You mentioned it the other week, and I sort of took note because this fella is diving 100 meters or so off the coast to see what's left in the seabed, with the thoughts that you had that the sea has covered things over the years, and holding up various items. It's an ongoing thing. But
Yeah.
to do a great, well, quite a big project there, it sound of it, because they say that it'll be yield a lot of finds, it'll be interesting. But that's it's been shown now. When it was actually done, I don't know yet, but it sounds important enough because what they're finding, he said, is quite interesting, almost unique. So
yeah, Roger, on a serious note, this is what I've been saying, isn't it? That we've got the ability to see how this whole thing pans out, and there's going to be more and more evidence. And interesting, very interesting enough as well. I'm just going to pop over here. Last night, one of our local people was actually doing some pottery washing of some of the artifacts that Archaeology Company has excavated from Stuart Wilson's excavation at Trellick, and we've actually found a shale button from Trellick, which I'm going to show you. Can you see that? Can you see that, guys?
What date do you reckon that is?
That's with the other. So I'm going to date that to about 1250. So it's a shale button. Yeah. You see that?
That's interesting. First button finder, I think.
Yeah. So that's so the first thing when Ellen, who was excavating it last night, not excavating. We've all met Ellen. Ellen actually. I just thought I was gobsmacked by this because I knew it's important. So I messaged Stuart straight away. So yeah, this is what we're saying. So news, like you've said, at Bolner, updating news at Bolner, which is something that I want to hear, Roger, every single week because it's relevant. So
well, yes, because we covered it the other week.
Well, we've covered it twice, Roger. We've had 2 lectures on it.
Yeah.
Thanks, Roger. It was really useful. Roger, I'm praising you for once, which is unusual. Goff, anything you'd like to say?
No, thank you.
Okay. Anne, anything you'd like to say? Right, she's not there. That's brilliant. Henry, anything you'd like to say?
I don't know if you had a chance to look at the White Sands information I sent you.
Oh, as in White Sands in
USA.
Oh yes, yes. Right, I've read it, and the overview that I've given is that this is the mammoth find, isn't it? So you've got a baby mammoth, and 95% of the bones from that site are adult mammoth, and it's 2, and they've been piled up, and it's evidence of butchering, and the evidence at White Sands takes the archaeology in North America probably as far back as 40,000 years ago, at least 37. And that means that we've got to change the boundaries of what we understand from North American archaeology. Yeah. And you know what I've said, Henry. I've said from day one that we're going to start to find some even more interesting, challenging stuff from North America. And if we start to see hominid remains from North America dating back 100,000 years, who are they? And the other thing as well is there was another thing this week that somebody was discussing, that we've now identified 27 separate hominid species. 27, and we're starting to think, well, this is everything that we ever wanted. So if anyone wants to say anything from Landscape Major, they need to phone in through Steve or text through Steve, And if not, we're going to crack on. Anyone say anything from Landsford Major? Right, I'm waiting. Right, so if anyone wants to say anything from Landsford, okay, right, let's crack on. So today what we're going to be looking at is we're going to be looking at the archaeology of an island off an island in Scotland. So we're looking at the outer, we're looking at the Inner Hebrides. So that's where we're going to go today. Now, I'm trying to make sure that I've got my tech. Not. Oh, hang on a minute. That's not what I want. Hang on. We're seeing us on the screen. So there we go. Bingo. Ah, right. So the site that we're actually going to be looking at is an archaeological excavation that took place. We've got evidence from 2012, and we've got evidence from 2015, and we've got more recent evidence. And I remember showing you these artifacts, which are actually hazelnut shells. Now, this is all from that sort of Anne Corran and Staffin Island area, Staffin Bay, which I'm going to show you where that is now. So I'm hopefully, if I can just tune in on my technology, and this should come up, and it did come up earlier on. Oh, there it is. Bingo. The technology is working. So if I can just move that down there, and we get that down there, and we go there. And what we've got, if we zoom that out, and we're getting that a bit more clearer. So where we are in the world, and I know Ellen used to talk about this in the Landsford Major classes. She used to say, tell me where these things are. So it's something that we've done ever since. So we've actually ended up in Scotland this time. Now, this is really interesting because Roger mentioned about Bolna Cliff off the northwestern coast of the Isle of Wight, right? He mentioned Bolna Cliff. And we've got archaeological evidence.
Seeing anything?
Oh, yeah, we are. I'm glad you mentioned that. I just showed you an image then, and unfortunately, you didn't see it, and that's your fault, Henry, for not telling me. No, that is my fault because I got a bit too excited. So
it must be a bit warm in your wagon.
In my wagon? No, actually, I'm somewhere else today. So I'm in a woman's caravan.
I knew it.
Right.
No, you didn't,
okay.
Roger. No, Roger, you didn't know it at all. You're talking rubbish as usual. Right. So
very cagey lately. Someone.
Roger. Right. I'm sorry. Right. My private life has nothing to do with you. Now go away. Right.
Interesting.
Okay.
No,
okay.
Don't go away.
Who do you reckon it is, Anne, then?
Can you just shut up? Right. Okay.
Alma's wife.
I'm having my breakfast.
Oh, please stop it. Right, so today we're going to look at this now, and we will be looking at Shetland at the end. So that's where Shetland is there, big islands there. And one point is when we do talk about Shetland, you see the big land, you see the big area that we've got between Shetland, Orkney, and the mainland Scotland. So then we're going to be looking at Orkney as well. So we know where Orkney is. And we know that Orkney was linked to Scotland at one time, at least 12,000 years ago. And then, similarly, when we actually go on to the exact subject matter now, and we've actually gone over to Wales. So there we go. We're going to go over to the Isle of Skye, right? So this is where we're going to go. And there, on the Isle of Skye, is the place that we're interested in. So we're interested in Staffin Island, and we're interested in this bay here, Staffin Bay. So it's a place called Anne Corran. Right now, we've mentioned about the hazelnut shells before, and we've mentioned about the archaeological evidence in that bay, and the evidence of the hazelnut shells dating back beyond 8,000 years ago, 9,000 years ago, which is rather interesting. That links us directly into what Roger said. We've got fascinating archaeological evidence coming from the Isle of Wight, and it dates back to 9,000 to 10,000 years ago, right? Well, this evidence up there is in about the same time span, right? More like Bolner is about 9,000, right? So one of the things that we come across in the literature a lot is it saying, oh, well, you know, we've got people living in the south, and we've got people living along the coast, and and by the way, we've got people living at places like Craswell Crags, and then we've got people living at Formby, which Formby, not Formby, Formby up above Merseyside. And then, amazingly enough, what we do have is then we've got evidence at Skye. But then it blows your mind because we've got archaeological evidence which is later, however, on Shetland. Now, everything that's coming out about the Mesolithic period, it's a bit like a jigsaw, and suddenly Anne's given me a piece, Roger's given me a piece, and we're starting to put it all together, and it's really rapid. So the evolving picture of the Mesolithic period in Britain is so amazing that we're struggling to try and analyze it, and that's one of the big problems with archaeology now. That there's so much stuff coming out. Who would have known that last year and the year before we'd be finding a massive new site with a huge Roman mosaic? And who would know that we'd be finding fresh Roman mosaics in London? Who would know that we'd be finding a wonderful statuary about the HS2 project and other sites around the period, other sites around the country? That's the Roman period. So as somebody that does Roman stuff, supposedly more than Mesolithic stuff, that's a lot for me to take on board. What is also a lot for me to take on board is trying to teach the Mesolithic period, and every week I'm trying to rejuggle what I'm telling you. I'm not trying to, I've got to be clear, I'm not trying to fit in with the narrative. What I am trying to do is chuck more information at you and say, actually, we now know this, and we now know that. And everything that I would have said 10 years ago is completely different. I wanted to say the word wrong. Yeah, let's say some of the stuff I said 10 years ago was wrong because I didn't have the data. So I admit I'm wrong. I make mistakes, but now it's almost as if I'm just being bombarded with Mesolithic information, and it's very amazing to teach, but it's very difficult at the same time. So I am so lucky to be a fellow of the Scottish Society of Scottish Antiquaries, and I've managed to find a document that I've got on my device that you can't get hold of, right? So the other night on Tuesday, I sort of showed you bits of the document, and obviously I was saying, you know, let's give credit to the Society of Scottish Antiquaries, but I'm not going to show that on screen today because you can't. So I don't want to jeopardize things. So what I want to do is I want to talk about this Mesolithic site on the Isle of Skye, and I want to give you an introduction and just a little bit of an overview, and then I'll give you some more information, and then I will do the paper per se. And we're just going to keep going today. We're just going to keep flowing. We're going to keep flowing. We're going to keep flowing. So if anyone needs a little break, just say, Carl, I just got to leave and I've got to go and put the kettle on or something. And we'll just sort of give you a couple of seconds or whatever, and we'll do that. But if not, we'll keep going. And if anyone in Lantwit, because we're getting problems with the speaker and stuff, I would like you to just text through via Steve or something. So because that seems to work.
We can see the notes. You know, I can see what they're saying on the notes at the bottom of the screen. Chat.
Well, what are you exactly getting now?
From Lantwit. They just said they're not seeing any images, but that was a while back.
But you are seeing images now.
I think so. Yeah.
We are.
Well, okay.
Oh
So
yeah, I am. Yeah.
Oh, well, they should be seeing it as well, right? Okay. So Anne, I tell you what, you're in control of the chat box, and let me know, okay? So just and what I'm going to do, Anne, right? Oh, this is going to go wrong now. Anne, I'm going to give you some control, Anne.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yes. Oh my fiddlesticks. And Anne, if you press the wrong button, right, well, you're going to lose everybody. So I'm going to make you a co-host. So anyone who wants to join us, right, you've got to add them on. Okay, Anne?
Okay.
Oh, that was really difficult. Right.
Mm.
Right, okay. Staffin Island, Staffin Bay, and here, and this is actually, this ties in with the archaeology. It's actually there on that beach. They found a 165 million year old dinosaur footprint, right? That's you know, a nice little dinosaur footprint. I think a tracker footprint. Now they were found very recently. Now the reason why I mention that is it's relevant because it's old, but it's not relevant to archaeology. But it's relevant to us today because it's set in Jurassic rock. So well, obviously we all know Jurassic Park is about the Cretaceous period as a film, but Jurassic is the first time that we actually see big dinosaurs, and it's the rock there that the archaeology is set within the landscape, the hinterland. So we've got what we would call a rock shelter being excavated at An Corran. But what I want to do is talk about another archaeological site that is sort of overlooking this area and actually overlooking the rock shelter. Now, as this article says, and basically I'm going to show this one, right? This itself is a place that they found lots of beauties. And that lady is one of the people involved. And interesting enough, in a 5-day excavation project, they had 200 people involved. Amazing, isn't it? So the little miniature time team. And I love little projects. I love little things like this because it's like time team all over. So again, I know I'm using the Google not sparingly, but some of these images on Google are great. And there was some criticism that I use Google for my images, but so be it. So this comes from, we've got stuff from 2012, and we've got the rock shelter evidence from the 1990s. So in other words, we've been aware of Mesolithic stuff in Staffin Bay for a couple of decades, but the work at Staffin Bay that we know about today and has been reported recently in the report that we're going to look at from 2012, and this BBC piece from 2015, Mesolithic site on Skye, it says to be investigated. And then what we'll do, we'll tell you what they found. So it's what they're saying as a headline and what we then found. So excavations of a Mesolithic site on Skye could give new insights into the lives of some of the island's earliest residents. Archaeologists believe the location above Staffin Bay has the remains of a house that could be 8,000 years old. Now, what did they find? Carry on. This is talking about the project, and then we'll look at the results. Mesolithic flints have previously been found in an area of eroded grazing land near the site. Now, I want to talk about something that we talked about on Tuesday before we go any further. And this is an appropriate place to talk about it. I'm breaking from the continuity because this seems to be the most appropriate place to do it. So what we're going to do, we're going to get a little bit of, we're going to do my little share whiteboard. And so one thing about the Mesolithic period and what we've just read out, Mesolithic flints have previously been found in an area of eroded grazing land near the sea, near the site, whatever, near the sea. Actually, it's the same thing. We started talking on Tuesday, and this is why it's so good to have a class before you guys. And what we've got is, if you think about the Mesolithic period as, if we want to draw a little plan.
Can't see you. Oh, right.
Thanks.
Thanks, Anne, for wrecking her. We'll start again. Right, sure, Pan. Right, so what we got, Anne, let go. let go of the pain, man. So you see that line there, nice little line, right? So say in one thing that we know about the Mesolithic period is it seems to be two areas where they're locating their settlements to, right? And we're going to talk about the obvious ones. And I've not done this before, so we're going to do it. So say for example in the Mesolithic period, we've got lots of sites lower down along the margins. That would be Bolna, and that would be sites that we're unaware of. And then what we've got in regards to the Mesolithic period is lots of sites that seem to be fairly high up, right? It seems to be sort of places like Cheddar Gorge, places like Brixham, and actually places like this site on the Isle of Skye, which is our 3. Now, inevitably, there's an area in the middle, this area here, that we're not really finding lots of sites. And that causes us a problem. And what's in these areas is, this is where the trees are. This is where the areas which are not marginal, this is the area which would eventually be felled of trees and so on, but that's not to come, right? And then what happens is thousands of years go down the line, these areas are flooded. Some areas are flooded along the coast, 5 meters, 10 meters, 20 meters. And in regards to Doggerland, 100 meters. So you can imagine, Roger, this is where Bolna comes in.
Yeah.
This is why we're finding Bolna on the, this makes perfect sense. This is why we're finding Bolna on the Isle of Wight, right? And then what we're then seeing is places like Hoyk, Starcar, and places like Staffin Bay. These types of areas here are the ones that we are now finding. If you note that these areas are now near the sea. So these sites are actively being eroded away, like West Voe on the island, on the Isles of Shetland, which is a site that I visited. And it was Michelle and it was Simon Clark, my lecturer, said this is West Voe, but this is being eroded into the sea. And he made the thing, well, back then, this was nowhere near the sea. This is my point, right?
Mm.
And actually, I've made, what we're going to do, we're going to use 2 and say that 2 represents those sites like Formby, which is up near Merseyside where the footprints are. So in other words, this little table is quite useful. So all the sites that we've looked at come into these categories, and there's very little in the middle. So this stuff, so that this answers 2 questions, right? The first question is 1. Why don't we find more Mesolithic sites up until now? Because we've been looking in the wrong places. These are the places where we're finding them, and these are the places where they're being eroded away, right?
Are they being eroded or revealed?
These are being eroded away up here,
Yeah.
and these are being revealed and then being eroded away at places like Bolna Cliff.
Oh, right. Okay.
So in other words, we've answered actually the 2 questions. We've answered why we don't find lots more Mesolithic stuff, and where the Mesolithic sites are, and now we're finding them, right? And that's basically, I needed to put that in there because it sounded really appropriate that we did that there and then. Oh, I've really done a big interjection then. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to get my breath, and I'm going to get back to what I wanted to do. I want to get back to this. Well, I wanted to do that anyway. I want to get back now to where we were with a little bit of an illustration. And we're going to go, I tell you what, we'll go back to our Google, right? And we'll chuck another little image on there. And this Google thing is great because, you know, it was, I think Tuesday a couple of weeks ago, it was Peter saying, I want you to just cut from the images we're looking at. I want you to type in on Google, and we looked at loads of images, and it was great. It worked a lot better that way. So Google, that's where we go. So so we finished with thinking about, and you mentioned about this is being eroded into the sea. Yes, it is. Archaeologists working as part of the Staffing Community Trust with volunteers and support at the University of Highlands and Islands my university. And what they wanted, what the research that they were doing, they knew that this was an important prehistoric landscape, not just in the Mesolithic period, but all the way into the Bronze Age and beyond, and has huge potential. Were they disappointed? Not going to do that yet. Despite staffing and having a wealth of prehistoric remains, this is the area's first archaeological excavation in 20 years, and its Mesolithic potential is intriguing and exciting. So the work that we're going to look at in 2012 is actually the published and other field work that has been done since the other work that occurred 2 decades earlier. So now we come full circle with that. During the Mesolithic period, there's question whether Scotland was inhabited or not. And now the answer will become clear and is clear. Important finds from this period have been made elsewhere in the Highlands and Islands. So what they did find was that there's a site in the Highlands, for example, a place called Sainsbury, where there's burnt oak being found. So chuck that into your flutes. So within sort of mainland Scotland, a place called Sainsbury, they're actually finding other stuff, a burnt oak tree, which looks like it's a human burnt oak tree, which is rather than a natural burnt oak tree, which is that correlation. So radiocarbon dates of the hearth found at this site near Nairn in the Highlands tell us that the evidence was Mesolithic. And obviously we've mentioned the footprint from Staffin Bay, which was basically more or less by this site. So now we're back in 2015, we're back at the excavations. And what I'd like to do now is I'd like to tell us what was actually found. Whew. So here we go. And this comes full circle now. So it would be good. And this is quite a short piece, but the evidence is absolutely fascinating. And what we're going to do, we're going to go with that image of the nuts that we saw earlier on. And don't die on me, yeah.
Sorry,
Yeah.
I mute my cough.
Yeah, and without your 50 quid every 2 months, I wouldn't be able to survive.
Oh.
Roger, Roger, your money I just earn when it comes through the door. I'm not really interested. It's all gone quiet. Sorry, Anne. Anyway, right. So Anne, we come full circle now, and Anne, what I'm going to say is that what do you know about hazelnut shells in the Mesolithic? I'm going to put you on the spot.
Oh, the Mesolithic. Well, that we find a lot of them.
Yeah, but why? What conclusion did we
Well,
come
we
to?
think
Do you remember?
we might have used them as as fuel on fires. Eaten them, and well, it could be used as the floor, flooring.
We did, and we didn't actually discuss that, but that is a really good point. No, that's a really good point. Well, I'm going to stretch this. Give me a fourth one, and we'll look at those a minute. Give me a fourth.
Oil? No.
No. That's fine. We're going to do that. So basically, the flooring one's really interesting, and why not? One of the things one of the absence in the past is trying to work out what's on the floor, right? So I would last night I had a bag of broken bits of tile, right? And I had some cement, so I made a floor with it. So I smashed it all up and made a floor with it. So I got a floor level with a cooker that I've got, right? So that's a floor, right? I'm using anything. They would have used anything, right? So that's one point. The other point as well is eating them. Well, so if you eat them, you've taken the soft stuff out from inside, and then you may have used them as fuel, right? And I think this thing about oil comes in with the oil in the nut and oil in the shell. Yeah. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a fifth one in there, right? The fifth one is that if you gently heat them up, only gently, then you've got a winter food, so they're not going to go off. So then
Oh,
you've got a
okay.
winter food. So, and obviously, then you use the shells and everything in a fire, right? There is one point that nobody has actually said about these nutshells, is why is there so many still around? If they're being consumed by the fire, why is there so many still around? Surely they would have burned. Because what I don't know if any of you have had this experience. Somebody in the Landsworth Major class used to give me pistachio nuts. I can't remember who. And I used to eat these pistachio nuts in the car as I'm driving to Landsworth Major. And by the time when I got to Bridgend from Landsworth, and by the time I got to Bridgend, I'd already eaten about 200 pistachio nuts. And when I took them home, I put them on the fire and they burnt really well, right? But there's no sign that I ever ate pistachio nuts because they've been consumed by the flames. So the big question is, why have we still got lots of these shells still with us? That's a question that I'm going to leave. And that's a question that you might be able to think about next week. So, Anne, if I don't ask you next week, I want you to check that in there. I'm sure Henry will remind us, and I'm sure he'll get us some information on it as well.
Yeah.
So responding to the article that was printed by the BBC, we go to Skye Museum, and Skye Museum gave a press release on the excavation, September 2015. These are the results. Nuts found during an archaeological site at Staffin Bay. May I add that it's a very small area they excavated. And they use terms that we don't like, but then we use them and we think of them as something else. For example, the idea that these are hunter-gatherer people, right? So are these people hunter-gatherer people, or are they, as I said, people living in amongst hunter-gatherers but also settling at the same time? So, this is one thing that we've discussed at length. So in other words, let's not be scared of the word hunter-gatherer. Let's think that, they did everything in this period, including hunter-gathering. For example, yesterday I went out and I collected about 1,000 bluebell seeds, and I collected about 2,000 foxglove seeds, which we will be selling. Right, we can sell 100 bluebell seeds for about 10 quid, and we can sell foxglove seeds for about the same price. Is that hunter-gatherer when I'm actually using a computer? What would you describe that as? Is that hunter-gathering? I would say it is.
Yeah.
But I'm using a computer, and I've got a kettle, and I've got a television, and I've got a gas fire, and I've got heating.
So you're settled.
Yeah, I'm settled, but I'm still hunter-gathering. So, I think words like hunter-gatherer are scary because they don't really define what we're talking about. And it's the same as what we're going to do tonight with the line lecture. I take apart a painting and we look at the layers in a painting tonight at 6 o'clock. So this is what I mean about moving the classes to a Thursday evening. So those that do the 6 o'clock class can then have a little bit of a break, and then we can go on to the main class between 7 and 9 o'clock or whatever. So that would be a lot better. So anyway, so so get to these hazelnuts. I've done a lot of digression, but it's all relevant. So the hazelnut shells were discovered during the 5-day community-led excavation in September 2015, when the Universities and Highlands investigated, alongside the Staffing Community Trust, a suspected Mesolithic structure. Right now, there's another point I'd like to make, but I'd also like to make this issue. When good old Ellen was working on some artifacts yesterday, I said, look, what we've got is we've got we sieve everything, and if we hadn't sieved the artifacts, we wouldn't have found that button, that medieval button that you're looking at now, right? So you're thinking about 200 people involved in the project. If you get a load of people sifting, that's where there's lots of people involved, right? So you're really getting people involved in the archaeology. What I want to do is you know what these hazelnut shells look like now, really well preserved, obviously quite small hazelnut shells as usual. And then what we're going to do is we're going to look at another image bouncing back and forth on the screen, right? And I want us to find that lady again. There she is. Now that lady the layers there are very shallow. And one issue that we mentioned on Tuesday was that why is it on some archaeological sites, the Mesolithic archaeology is 2 meters down or 1.5 meters down, as in regards to the site of Skye, or why on other sites like this one, the archaeology from Mesolithic period is basically near the surface. And that's easily answered, isn't it? Because the archaeology at Skye is basically within those lower levels, within those sort of peaty boggy levels, and it's being built up. And that's where the lake sort of was inundated with silts, and that's where it's built up, because it's in a low-lying area. It's not sort of low-lying today because the water level's risen, but it's still low-lying in relation to the past. Now, this site itself would have been in the upland areas, which would have been the first areas that would have been felled of their trees, because this is the model. Upland areas along the coast being felled of trees first, and there's the stuff in the middle later. This is what I say when we look at the Roman period. Sorry for the digression, but you're going to have it. And that when in the Roman period, the reason why Roman engineers or the Roman military or Roman traders used ridge lines was because the trees were already gone, because it was easy to go along a ridge line, right? You don't find Roman forts in the middle of a valley, right? Because it's full of trees. Why would you do that? You don't find most Roman settlements in the Rhondda Valley are not found in lower levels. They're found up in upper levels, and that explains it. So even for a long period of time, from the let's talk about the Paleolithic as well, as some of the trees are going as the ice is melting. Those upland areas and the marginal areas that are lived in first, and it's only later on that people live in the middle. And it's also the likes of where you get towns and cities where you don't get lots of archaeology, simply because the archaeology itself, boom, 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 from the Mesolithic period doesn't exist because the trees were still there. So there we go. So looking back at this site, radiocarbon dates have now confirmed the excavated lithics dated to around 9,000 years ago. The reason why we did that article at the beginning, and I know somebody in Lansford Major shouting and saying, "Oh, look, Carl, you could have all done this in 10 minutes, and why have we spent 30, 40 minutes on doing this?" But I'm simply saying we're looking at a lot of other stuff along the line. And this is why we do it this way. And this is why I did the introduction. This is how we do archaeology. We ask what expectations that we've got. So what expectations that we've got on an archaeological site? There's going to be nothing there, so why excavate it? We don't excavate it. We excavate it with those expectations, and then we're wrong about our expectations. Instead of being 8,000 years ago, 9,000 years ago does the archaeology date from. So from what we thought has gained 1,000 years within the space of a few months of research at the site, which was a 5-day excavation. So 2 fragments of charred hazelnut shell, 2 in particular out of the big box, were radiocarbon dated to at least 8,800 years ago, which could take it to 9,000. There you go. And obviously, those dates that we've got are terminus antiquem dates. The the latest possible dates. So those hazelnut shells have already been collected and been part of society before they were burnt. So that's the latest date, not the earliest date. And we got some interference. So okay. So so the hazelnuts were recovered from soil samples from the lower part of the sequence at the site, suggesting human activity may have occurred over a long period of time. And when we talk about a long period of time, I need to go off on another tangent, right? And in the absence of evidence. So what we do find is some Mesolithic sites have been occupied in later periods, destroying the archaeological evidence. And I will give you an example of this. When I was excavating for the Glamorgan and Gwent Archaeological Trust under Dr. Pete Wardle at the Atlantic Trading Estate in the late 1980s, we were excavating on a Bronze Age site. And what's relevant about that? But over there on the left of the Bronze Age site, on the eastern side of the site, there was a ditch. And that ditch from the Bronze Age had discovered Neolithic and Mesolithic layers. And at the bottom of the ditch, it was all mucked up, all churned up and all the rest of it. So there was Mesolithic stuff there. So, and that, the site at Atlantic Trading Estate is now by the coast, being eroded away by the coast. So that's one of those sites number 2, isn't it? So site number 2, site, oh no, it's not, site number 3, isn't it? Sorry, got my stuff wrong. Site number 3, remember that chart we did? Site number 3, yeah, which is those upland area sites, which is now near the sea. Sorry, I nearly made a big balls up of that then. So that was once far away from the sea. Now it's very near the sea, being eroded away. So that's site number 3. And again, Mesolithic evidence in a local context. Usually, local archaeology that we do come across is microliths and flints and all those other things that go bump in the night. All those bits of evidence that we are talking about, you might find stray in the field, but proper archaeology, like those layers that I mentioned, Atlantic Trading Estate, and this site is the stuff that makes heroes of the archaeology. The archaeological excavation has yielded a fragment of worked bone as well, worked bone in the earlier layers, and wait for it, in an excavation area. And if I can find an image, I can show you the full excavated area. See, this will come up. Oh, dinosaur footprint, there it is. Nice. It's been there for quite a while and nobody spotted it. So there you go.
Oh.
That was only found a few, not so long ago. So I'm just scrolling through this as we do. And it's just showing you, just trying to get that image. So if I put in Ancoran excavation, I just want to show you that image. Ancoran, so if we get an excavation image, and it shows, I want it is just to encapsulate the area, and show you how small the area that they're excavating and what evidence they've come across. There's nothing but dinosaur footprints here. Oh my God. The problem is, there we go. There it is. It's a tiny area they're excavating. And Anne, there's 2 points here.
Oh.
The archaeological excavation not only revealed worked bone, but in this very small area, and it was just a bit wider than this actually, and just a bit wider, no more than that. They found thousands of flints in that small area. Now, the one point about this is as follows. The flint assemblage recovered from the same layer is currently being quantified and analysed. These were in the lower layers associated with the worked bone and the charred hazelnuts. Now, this is fascinating that we've got thousands of flints in just a small area. And this is not to do with the rock shelter site. That's another one that we're going to do. So the one thing that we can say is that if you're getting thousands of flint in this small area, how many flints are across the site altogether? Tens and tens of thousands of flints. So 2 points. What you do from that, you quantify. So if you work out how big the site might be from, say, geophysics, you might say it's 10 times this area, 10 times the number of flints that might be spread across the site. Right, okay, we've worked that one out. From the Mesolithic period. What does that tell us? Does that tell us that they were living in the Mesolithic period at that site for a long period of time? What is it telling? Is it a trading site? Is it a working site? What's going on? And they also found other objects from the boulder, from the other site, which is the rock shelter site, which weren't flints. They were a mudstone, like cherty type of object that was used for similar purposes. So we've got different evidence within the same area, within the same time span. And it's so amazing. And to be honest with you, this little bit of information I've got is fascinating, but it's still quite limited. And again, because they're still analyzing the archaeological evidence, right? So quantifying. What we do have is that there was a building found at the site, but it was a building from later periods, the medieval period, and there was evidence of a site from another prehistoric period as well. Now, but what we do think is that there was a building there. There was a settlement from the huge level of data. And it's more than just people coming in, napping flint, and then buggering off somewhere. Remember that this would have been a site which would have been more or less connected to the mainland about 10,000 years ago, before the sea inundated the Inner Hebrides by water, all environs forever. So what we've got clues to a life that is very different and very similar to what's going on at Boulder Cliff. In other words, what we're saying is that people were spread over Britain over a vast area. And that question that I say that I may have got wrong, Anne, what's that? The question is, when we get people saying to me, how many, I want to dare to challenge this, but I'm struggling to challenge this following argument. Because I want a bit more. I'm too academic in my thinking on this way. When people say how many people lived in Mesolithic Britain, how many people lived in Scotland in the Mesolithic period up until, say, 8,000 years ago, 8,500 years ago, right? I would say in Scotland a few hundred people. I'm wrong, because we're getting a few sites in Scotland, and if that's a few, if there's a dozen people there and a dozen people there, you get to 100 within no time at all. So that's wrong. The textbooks are wrong. That's got to be wrong. All the sites that we're seeing, we're getting a lot of data. So the analysis of the numbers of people in Scotland is wrong in the Mesolithic period. When we look at the sites of Boulder Cliff, when we look at the footprints of Formby, we look at the stuff going in Chedge Gorge, we look at Brixham, we look at Starcar, and we look at Gold Cliff. The estimates for the numbers of people living in the Mesolithic period in Britain are way out. It's not in the thousands. I want to say tens of thousands. I want to say a lot more. I want to say it. And maybe I will in the next few weeks. I'm just not happy with saying 10, because I've always thought that it's in the thousands. But now the evidence is saying tens and tens of thousands of people living in Britain. It's I can't get it in my head. I can't get it yet, but I'm going to get there. Anne.
But also, you were using that those numbers to sort of say that we weren't a warlike people, like, because there was too few people to war, or there was nothing to fight over, but if there are more people now, it might
but
a different life, a different attitude towards each other,
What I'm going to do, I'm going to take part of that, but I'm going to disagree with the other part, right? We estimate about 1.62 million people living in the Bronze Age about 4,000 years ago. Those people were so thinly spread over Britain. The idea of warfare is still abhorrent. It is still more or less impossible, because there's still few people living in the Bronze Age. And so I get with you what you're saying about the attitude. I agree with you about the attitude is different. Yeah, the attitude is going to be different because there's more people. But I will argue. This is one thing I won't bend on. I am going to be stubborn. There's no evidence of warfare on this scale until probably the end of the Bronze Age, going into the Iron Age. I will argue that one until I go blue.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, okay. We'll run with all that. We'll think about that. So the next thing is, so this, we've got a rock shelter nearby, which is where we're going to go next, which was excavated in the 1990s. Now both sites, this one and the rock shelter, are contemporary, but they're doing very different things. One is using a lot of flint, and the other one's using a lot of chert or chalcedony. It's like flint, but it's basically mudstone, right? It's not the same material. So in other words, you've got two different things going on within a big stone throw. You can throw a stone from this side over to the other side if you've got a good aim, and it's different things. And that says something else, Sam, that says different mindsets, different attitudes, everything that we've just said. We are really pleased to have such convincing Mesolithic dates from the site. This hints at the high potential for additional excavations in the area, and presents a great opportunity to understand life in the Staffin area during this period. Now, we've been going for 50 minutes now, and I want to get onto the rock shelter. If anyone wants to go out the room and put the kettle on or whatever, but I am gonna continue. So what we've got is the University of Highlands and Islands are saying we are really pleased to have such convincing Mesolithic dates from the site. This hints at the huge potential for additional excavations in the area, presents a great opportunity to understand life in the Staffin area during this period. Repeated that because that's such an important thing to say. The laboratories confirmation of human activity in the area 9,000 years ago is a huge bonus to all who took part, and we eagerly await what's going to go next. And obviously this is funded. This is a very important piece of archaeology, and interestingly enough, it's so important that the Carnegie Foundation in New York got hold of this project and actually funded some of it. So it's great. Highland Council funded it. You've got the work by the Staffin Trust, and you've got Community Trust and University of Highlands and Islands. So they're basically discussing how they could push this project further, and it was attended by 200 people, mainly taking part in the work as well. So it's great. Such an isolated place over 5 days. Amazing that we've got the importance of this site coming to the forefront. So
it is important because I think apart from maybe lakesides, that's maybe another place we could look for Mesolithic. Coastlines are going to be very important, aren't they?
They're going to be important for other reasons as well, Anne, that assists us to monitor the huge changes that are actually going on.
Yeah.
So I'm going to make sure that I've got my wonderful piece up on the screen. Oh, not on the screen, this end. There we go. Brilliant. So what I'm going to do now, I've got you're going to be looking at images from one article, and I'm going to be looking at the one that's from the Scottish Society of Antiquaries. And may I give credit to the Scottish Society of Antiquaries for the information that we're now going to share, and you own the copyright. I'm just going to go there, and it was there a moment ago. I've lost it a minute. Hang on a minute. Just going to retype this in. Okay, there we go. Just going to see if this is the one. If not, that's not the one. Oh, God. I just had it. That's not it. That's not it. That's not it. Just going to see if it's this one. Okay, it's not that one. Hang on. Hang on. Stuff in it. Is it this one?
To leave you a minute.
You got to leave me. I think this is it. Alright. No, it's not there. Hang on. Sorry about this, folks. It went from my screen. Okay. Right. Okay, let's just see where we are. 1 second. Seems to update and it doesn't want me to do it. Shelter. Get the images of that now. Images. Okay, rock shelter. Okay, rock shelter, rock shelter. Hang on a minute. We do have a technical problem here. Hang on. It's coming. Rock shelter. Okay, right. Okay, let's just see if it's in here. Da, 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 da. Hang on. Okay, let's see if I can get this on the screen, folks. If you can bear with me. Nope. Ah, right. Yeah, this could be useful. Right. So what we are doing is we're going to be looking at a rock shelter site, and it's basically on Corrin Bay, the one that we mentioned. And what it basically is that they excavated a rock shelter site, and this is actually the evidence from the rock shelter site. And as you can see, that you've got mudstone, chalcedony chert being used for a majority of their tools. So the Corrin rock shelter on the northeast coast of Skye contained a series of shell middens and other deposits with evidence for human occupation from the Mesolithic and later periods. A rescue investigation of the site in the winter of 1993-1994, immediately prior to anticipated total destruction by rock blasting for roadworks, included the excavation of a trench dug down to bedrock, and they went down a good meter. A total of 41 separate contexts were identified. Of these, 31 were recent or later prehistoric. The upper levels containing a series of hearths of recent date and an Iron Age copper alloy pin. So what we're going to say is that this rock shelter, and I'm going to do exactly what I did on Tuesday. I couldn't get the technology on here. So what I did, I got me to join on this phone, and I shared bits of the document that I'm looking at. And that's the way I got around it. So the lowest layers were identified initially as Mesolithic on the basis of bone tools and a lithic typology. So you've got baked mudstones being used, and you've got chalcedony. All these are being used for tools, which we will have a look at. These layers consisted of several distinct areas. A midden, below which there were 2, possibly 3 horizons of microlithic activity, early Mesolithic activity that could go back even greater than 9,000 years. So you've got a rock shelter. What is a rock shelter? Basically, a rock shelter is an overhang, which isn't quite a cave because it doesn't go deep enough. But back then, it would have been sort of up overlooking the landscape. Now, today, it's not too far away from the sea. So the midden layers also contain some human bones, but these dated from above these layers that we've mentioned, the lower layers. And these human bones dated to the Neolithic period. But nevertheless, they've got activity going on at this site, which illustrates the continuity for thousands of years. Now, this baked mudstone and chalcedony silica are the tools that they actually, these were the tools that they used. Right? Instead of using flint, they used chalcedony. Chalcedony is a silicate-based stone, obviously baked mudstone, and all of this is associated with the layers that have been laid down with around that landscape from the Jurassic period onwards. So the rock shelter, as I say, it's associated with an outcrop. And there's one thing that the materials found at this site may have been traded as far away as the island of Rum. So that's absolutely amazing that we've got this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop my screen. I'm going to stop my screen sharing here. And then I'm going to go on to here. So I'm gonna join from this device. We're going to join. And get me on. And add me.
Oh.
Are you there, Anne? Where's Anne gone?
On mute.
Yes, I'm here.
You're supposed to add me.
Add you. Oh, oh, you're added. You've added. I've added you now, haven't I?
Oh,
Yeah. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make me another co-host. So we've got two. I tell you what, we're not going to have Roger as a co-host because that would really muck things up. Sorry, Rod. So we've got another co-host. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show the images that I've got on here. Right. So here we go. Roger, this is where it goes wrong.
yeah, fine.
Oh, there's two you.
Oh, oh my God. God in heaven.
Roger, shut up.
It's cocked up now.
No, I haven't cocked up. No, I haven't.
Oh,
No, I haven't.
what? Oh,
What the heck? What was that?
where?
Shut up, Rod. But are you seeing this on the screen?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm calling. Yeah.
You are that?
I'm calling. Ah, fine.
Are you seeing this, Anne?
Yes.
Right. There is the rock shelter. Now you can imagine that back in the day, and this is all copyright the Society of Scottish Antiquaries, and basically there you go. There's the excavation. So if you can imagine that back in the day, this would have been high up, right? And now it's very near the sea.
Could I just say that a few years ago we went to Derbyshire and I went to Mam Tor, and it's the biggest highest point in Derbyshire.
Yeah.
And I was with a geologist, and he said that the stone was mudstone right on top of Mam Tor. So that would have been
Jurassic.
Underwater at one time.
Well, actually, it would have been, if it's mudstone, it would have been that would have been a big lake. Yeah. Mudstones and sandstones are formed under lakes, and formed as in lakes. And then limestone is formed out of sea, so that's how you can tell. So it was a muddy lake once, Anne. Yeah. Got it?
So, mudstone. Interesting.
Right, so are we still seeing this on the screen?
No, we're seeing you.
You get.
Seeing all the people.
It's your fault, Roger. You've ruined the lecture.
I know. That's you.
Right, so we got that. We know where we are. So we're back on the screen. Well, there we go.
What's that?
Rog, if I wanted your opinion, I'd ask for it. Don't want it.
Who's this woman in the caravan?
Look, shut up about the woman in the caravan. It's nothing to do with you. Right. So I've explained that. So what I'm going to do is what we've got here. We're just going to sort of quickly look over this. So we've got the evidence of this wonderful rock shelter, and we've got the work in the 1990s. And there you've got, it's so close, and that there is basically where they were blasting to put a road through. And they thought, oh my God, we've got this evidence, this Mesolithic evidence. So we were very lucky to actually excavate there. Now, a little birdie tells me that in the late 1970s and the early 1980s, there was other evidence on the island of Shetland. But because there was no archaeologists working on Shetland, the oil companies were allowed to destroy what they liked. And there was archaeological sites were only being preserved and protected on Shetland only in the mid 1980s. So up until then, everything on the Shetland Islands was being destroyed. So it's lucky that we've got archaeologists working, and look at that there. So this is the archaeology that they've been working on. So what I'm going to do, what we then say is that this itself, at this point, the cliff face and the shore are close, only some 20 meters separating the ledge and the sea. But this back in the day was not by the sea at all. It's all to do with the varying differences in sea level. And this is only 10 meters above mean high sea level today. So it was still quite vulnerable, because if you had a major storm, the waters could maybe come as far as this in a surge, but that's something else. So there we go. Those are the excavations, and those are the conditions, what they're working in. So if you can imagine that would have been an overhang there, and then they're excavating underneath. So this area could be classed, it's said, as like a sea cave of some description. But what a sea cave back in the past, right? So it's not only a Jurassic, but it's a Devonian sort of, we're talking about the Devonian glaciation and the changes with that and so on, right, with the glaciation that occurred much later. So what we've got then is that we've got activity to do with glaciation up to 12,000 years ago, and this is allowing for the cave to be eroded by glaciation, and therefore meaning that it could be used as a place for habitation in the Mesolithic period that looked out over this very intriguing landscape. So what we've got this ledge, we've got the excavation of the undercut, is the overhang, and what they're saying is that even back in the day at that position there, it wasn't much deeper than it is today. We do have an image of that coming up. So there we go. This is what it looks like today, and there's only 10-meter difference in profile. And they had to. So there we go. A little sort of nick there. And I do believe if we scroll through this, hang on, where does it show it? There. That's what they think. So in other words, the former cliff, right, didn't really exhibit much of an overhang back in the day. So it can't be classed as a cave. It's got to be classed as a rock shelter. So as we sort of scroll up and we think about this piece, right, and we think about the archaeology, and it said that at the deepest extent it may have gone 6 meters into the rock, so it can't be classed as a cave. And what we've got is evidence. The nearest fresh water source was a spring. So we've got fresh water sort of nearby. And it was thought that there was potential for archaeology here in the 1980s. But it was only in the 1990s that they actually started working there. And there was other evidence found there as well. Pottery from the 18 and 1900s. So the shelter aspect of the site was evident during the assessment, and on the basis that qualities which attracted activities, they decided to sort of excavate there. So that's the excavation site there. there it is. There's where they're excavating. There's the spoil. And they did a little bit of an excavation before the 1990s to assess the archaeology. And then they extended the excavations in the 1990s because the site was going to be destroyed by road working. So obviously, this thing about planning is really important, to plan the excavations, to understand what the aims of the excavations were. We'll just talk about the strategy, because we mentioned strategy to do with archaeology earlier on. Excavation strategy. The term excavation strategy is perhaps over elaborate. You know, when I do an archaeological report, because I did an archaeological report for a friend of Goff's, and it was the we took a building development site in Lisworney, and I did a 20-page report on what we were going to do. That's excavation strategy. So we've got to do this in archaeology. Sometimes it's over the top, like mine was, but they're always over the top. So it basically says we've got to establish the vertical stratigraphy, sort of, and then we've got to understand how deep, how across, and how deep the archaeology is. How deep does it go? And obviously understand the horizontal nature. That's not there. Recovery of material which might indicate the nature of these deposits. So is it being disturbed? Is it there? Is it what's happening? We needed data material, which they got. Environmental data collected, because we've only got one chance at this, guys. Once it's gone, it's gone. It's gone forever. So from earlier records, they were able to understand. There we go. Then they excavated the area that they're excavating. So they extended it. So there, and to get to these earlier layers, they've got a bit of a digger in there. There we go.
Wow. Yeah.
So, you know, they got the digger in there. And obviously, if we go down again, hang on a minute. So if I go back, like some stupid idiot phoned whilst we were doing that then. And okay, right. Okay, whatever's happened, whoever just phoned then has knocked us out, right, of what we were doing. So I'm going to see if I can get that back in. Right. If we can't get these back in, then oh, there it is. Hang on. What are you seeing on your screen?
Digger.
Still seeing it? I'm not.
The digger on, you know, the a digger on the site.
Okay, you still got the digger on the site?
Yeah. Oh, you can see the rock shelter though. Oh,
Oh,
right,
yeah. 6 meters in.
Do you know what, right? I was touching the wrong screen.
Oh,
oh, never mind.
yes.
I actually had it on this one. Touching the
Only
wrong
gadget.
screen. Shut up, Rod. Right, so basically, are you looking at this now?
Yeah,
Yeah, somebody on a
with a
pile.
red shirt, jacket on.
Some woman with a.
Do you know what? I can't even see what you're seeing.
Well, someone with a red jacket on, looking at the rock shelter.
On the sloping pile of rubble.
That's the one. That's the one. And I'm just going to look at the little bit of a chat box because there's some chat in there. So, right, that we are not seeing any images. They are now. Have you seen the Drum Nan Linten death-based assessment? They seem to have. Right. So anyway, thanks for that, Henry. We'll look at that next week. So anyway, back to what I was doing. So you keep telling me that you're seeing the images because I can't see them anymore.
Well, we can see one.
Right. So you're looking at a guy in a red jacket. So this is
Yeah.
where you can see that this is the archaeology is quite intense there, and this is what they're looking at.
Yeah.
So you've got the former cliff face, what it would have been back in the day. And obviously the beach there, but obviously back in the day, the sea wouldn't have been there at all.
So you're showing where they did the dig.
That's
Did the
right.
road.
Okay,
Road.
okay,
And
okay.
What
I've got
lost?
this now. I know what I'm doing.
got the words.
We lost the thing.
So what we've got, they've got they trying to get as much information out of the excavation as possible. And this is what they did. Once the nature of the deposits became apparent, they thought about how to preserve it, how to excavate it. The excavation, in attempted to meet the above objectives, they excavated an area 6 by 6 meters to try and really understand. And there are the excavations.
Right.
So amazingly enough, they went down they went down about they went down over a meter. And the archaeology in the rock shelter from the Mesolithic period, from what I could make out, is about half a meter deep. So
So that's the
again,
rock bit.
yeah, this is the rock shelter, and then they're going down.
Is that base? Do they dig into that, or is that just stone there?
No, it's basically all soil that they're excavating into,
Oh.
soil and stone.
Oh,
Soil and stone as they're excavating there. You could see that nearby, basically the beach is nearby.
yeah.
So what you can see there, they're excavating down in that trench.
Yeah.
And what they're finding, they keep going excavating as we keep going down. And this is what is massively interesting. And we've got a little bit of a table. You can see the scale there, can't you? So it's if you think that they've gone down under 2 meters, right?
Oh.
But you can see over where 34 and 32 is. 34 and 32 is the Mesolithic stuff, and it's quite thick. In fact, if you look at one stage, the Mesolithic stuff, 32, 34, and 33, all this stuff, sort of 3 different distinctive layers. We've gone down about 750 millimeters, so it's well over half a meter. But the stuff on the left-hand side is where the Mesolithic stuff. You can see how well preserved this is. So the point is, when people are talking about the Mesolithic period, and there's not much in the way of preservation, and there's not much archaeology, they be wrong. So if we go to the table, it starts at number 16. It doesn't start at number 16.
Number 1.
If we go to number 16, right, we can see that 16 is where you've got the rockfall, right? Look at 32, 34, and 32. Those are of interest to us. So if we scroll down and look at these context numbers, right, this is what interests us. From 32, 33, all of these numbers here, these are the contexts as they go down. And what you can clearly see is there's lots of activity, even at number 26, right? So even if you look at number 26, which isn't shown on, 26 is in amongst all this stuff here, 24, just above the 34 and 32. This is where the archaeology gets really interesting. And what you do have is, as you read through the layers, particularly our deposit of 34, as we go to 34, you've got our very interesting layers, our Mesolithic layers. 34, very thick layers, half a meter thick. And in there, what you do have is shell deposits, crushed animal bones, and lithic artifacts. That's where the archaeology is. So we've got lots of massive archaeology in there. And then when we get to 41, right, which is not shown on here, they're obviously below 32 and 34, and that's where the natural layers are within the archaeology. So it's and there you start to go really down, right? And the C8 itself, which is half, that's C8. Okay, 8 isn't amongst this top stuff. That's your later stuff. That's your other Neolithic stuff. But obviously we go all the way down there, and these layers down, the lowest layers, and the Mesolithic stuff. And this is where the archaeology gets absolutely fascinating. So it sort of talks about mixtures of archaeology. It talks about between 31 there and 34, the lower layers, and 41 being the original soil before humans got there. There was an overall tendency for the context, the 32s, where the Mesolithic stuff is, to be bits of stone. Obviously, above that, the earlier context, the C8s and all the rest of it, and the later prehistory, even though there's no set hearths in the Mesolithic layers, there's burnt material. So in other words, the burnt material is indicating hearths rather than hearths themselves in the lower layers from the Mesolithic period. So it's massively important that we've got these sequences. And there's an image here that is going to be very familiar to the likes of Kathy. When we went to the island of Sanday and we looked at the side of the cliffs at Sanday, which were being eroded away, what we've got is in those layers, we've got mixtures of shells and burnt material. And those layers of burnt material are basically those the Mesolithic deposits. It's a lot going on there, you know, and I'm grateful for Henry finding other data that we'll have a look at next week. That's what's above the earlier stuff, right? All the rock fall, but in the earlier stuff, there's little rock fall. There's not as much rock fall as in the later stuff. So in other words, this is really well preserved, and there's a lot going on within the archaeology. So
this was found.
So what's that, Rog?
How was it found?
Say that again.
The site of digging. How did they find it? Being interesting.
It was found by complete accident. Basically, in the 1980s, they found bits of pottery and stuff which were later, but they found bits of pottery in a cleft in the rock, and this is the cleft in the rock. And they basically thought this is the type of thing that you would get in the south coast, like Brixham, where in caves you get later pottery, right? Much later pottery. And you think, well, if people have been wandering around there in the 1900s, they could have been wandering there in earlier periods. This is why the site became very, very important. So what we're talking about, finally, I'm running out of I'm running out of sort of fresh air now. But they're saying that there might be evidence of structures in the later Mesolithic period, which is basically just above, there it is, 30. They're saying that they're or more Neolithic stuff. So there's stuff been going on there, which has been going on at the site for a very, very, very long time. And then obviously all of this stuff, it sort of gives a bit of an overview. But again, look at this. This is why this is in C34, C35. This is the crux. This is the thing. Within 34, there's 35. And then it says here, this is key to it being indicative of a building settlement within this area. The significance and configuration of these contexts, C31, C35, which is the Mesolithic stuff, which appear intrusive, are uncertain. Perhaps the most obvious explanation of C35 would be that it was a post hole or post pit, but without any record of it in plan or section. So they need to go back there and understand it a bit more. So that might be an indication of a structure alongside the deposits within this rock shelter. And without saying any more that we're going to be doing next week with the other sites, which Henry's indicated, hopefully what we're going to find is that this could in fact be evidence of one of the earliest buildings or structures anywhere in Britain. But it happens to be the most furthest north site in anything that we've discussed. And that changes the game again.
Yeah.
In other words, they're not just occupying after the Ice Age southern Britain. They're actually up in the north as well. And that is a game changer. So I'm actually completely pooped now. I am really worn out. So
Could I
so yeah, go for it. So what we're going to do you can say a bit now. Henry will be looking at that source material next week on the bay. Thank you for that, Henry.
Okay.
We'll do that next week, and we'll also do the Shetland and Orkney stuff next week. So, Anne, you say your bit, please.
Oh, I just find it fascinating. Is it? I don't understand. Would it have been soil when they were digging? You know, when they were first activating this, would it have been soil in, you know, in the rock face? So
When you mean blown in sands, blown in soil, yes, it would have been. So
right.
that would have buried, yeah, blown in sands, buried in soil. That was in the text, so that was there. I didn't read that out. So yes,
Yeah.
yes,
Okay, I understand now.
good. So those are the deposits. What happened if you read between the lines? The deposits in the cave were blown in before substantial rock started to fall above. This is what we're seeing, because within the archaeology of the Mesolithic stuff, there's not as many rocks. So this is why it's well preserved and all compacted and together.
Oh,
And the stuff
so-
above is preserved it and protected it. So anyway,
okay.
thanks for that. Thanks for that, Anne. If there's nothing else you want to say, and I'm going to say for next week, those obviously next week want to still sign in from Lantern Major, can do, but we will be migrating to Thursday evening over the next 2 weeks. And then basically those from Lantern Major who want to join the Barry class to have this live may do so. But in the next few weeks, the Thursday morning class will be made obsolete. And you will be visited by Tom next week as well, who will be who's actually taken over some of the classes. So right. So anything else you want to talk about, Goff?
No, that was very interesting. Thanks very much.
Thank you for that, Goff. Roger, anything you want to say next?
No.
Anything you want to say, Roger? No. That was quite whatever. So anything you want to say, Henry?
Very interesting. I mean, one thing that's quite surprising when you look at the data, this area has been occupied for literally thousands of years. You know, going back Neolithic, you know, all the way through up medieval, and then carrying on into the present day.
Yeah.
And that is the point. That is exactly what we've been saying. And I think that's a good introduction to next week, actually, Henry. That's a really good introduction. So we'll be doing a little bit of shouting next week. There's another subject I wanted to do next week, and we'll continue on with this. And then finally, have you got your mic working there?
Yeah, I think so. Sorry, can you clarify about the classes changing, because we obviously missed that earlier on.
Can we right? What? Can you just bear with me a second? Stay there. Stay there.
That was my phone. Do you go to Barry, Goff?
No,
No.
no, I don't go anywhere.
Well, you'll have to come to Bridgend.
No, I don't want to go there.
Is it too far?
Yeah.
Oh, all right. Do you know where Claire?
No,
Oh,
don't know anyone.
all right. That's okay then.
He's Billy No Mates.
That's it.
Where's the road, Golf?
Don't you want to know anybody?
I know Carl. I know Carl.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Oh, we all know Carl. Yeah. Actually, somebody is inquiring about Bridgend class, so we can't have a class, but I was thinking of doing like a coffee morning. It is a bit far, isn't it?
Well, sometimes I go to Asda's.
In Bridgend.
Yeah.
Oh, actually, we go there for coffee. We go there for coffee sometimes.
I feel out of place there sometimes. I haven't got tattoos.
Oh, I know, it's terrible. Well, I just think everyone does now. We all feel out of place. Unless you go to Cowbridge or maybe Dinas Powys and Lantwick Major.
Oh, yeah.
I wouldn't mind living in Lantwick Major because the train line, you know, goes like you know, Dinas Powys, Cardiff, Penarth. Yeah.
It's a nice run, that.
Yeah, I think so.
Nice.
I don't like driving over there though, because my mother-in-law lives there. But I used to go and see Carl all the time. I didn't think about it. But I was 20 years younger then.
So times change, don't they?
Yeah, I don't feel I haven't got the energy anymore, you know. And the roads are much busier.
Yeah.
What's he doing?
Well, I don't know. He's gone.
He must be on the phone, but I didn't think it was his phone really.
He's finishing up, isn't he?
Yeah, he's finishing up. Shall we say goodbye then?
Yeah, okay, then, folks. Take care. See you in 2 weeks.
We'll see you tonight.
No, won't be there tonight. Okay then.
Yeah, I mean, Thursday's the only night that I got to myself.
Oh.
And I used to watch all the telly I wanted to watch.
Oh, Thursday night, 7:30, that's Emmerdale.
Pardon?
Emmerdale.
Oh God, no! I'm EastEnders. I'm common.
Right, see you again.
Okay. Are you
Cheers,
gonna... Actually, we can't get out. Okay. Oh, you can.
Bye.
We leave then. Bye, Carl. Bye. Bye. See you tonight.
Going now. See you folks next time. Bye.
Bye for now.
Bye.
Oh, Jim, I might not be here. No, sorry. I'm thinking about. Oh, no. Sorry, I'm sorry.
Hello, I've got 1 minute and then I've got to go. Right.
Right, just point of clarification about the change. We obviously missed that at the beginning because we couldn't hear you properly. So when are you proposing switching from mornings to evenings? Because some of us can't actually do the evenings, or certainly won't be able to do every Thursday
Well,
evening?
I've got to decide whether if I can move the Thursday class in Barry, if I can move my Wednesday class in Barry to a Thursday, right? So you could do Barry on a Thursday.
And that's still in the morning, is it?
That will be in the morning, yes.
Okay.
So those of you, if you can work out who can do what, and then we'll continue doing this on a Thursday evening. Well, basically, this main class will transfer to a Thursday evening online at 7 o'clock. Those that can sign in online, and then those that can get to Barry. I think we can move Barry to a Thursday morning. So if I can move Barry to a Thursday morning, and then those that can get to Barry on a Thursday morning, that will be from 11:30, and that'll be on Thursdays, and that won't be starting next week. That'll be starting the week after.
Oh, right, so that's a different time
Okay.
then.
Okay. So decide what you all want to do next week. Is there any questions about the class? Because I've got to go.
If we want to do it by Zoom, the way you've been doing it, the only option is a Thursday evening then.
That's the one, yeah. Okay. So everyone decide what they want to do next week, and we'll have a chat about it next week. Anything about the class, because I've got to go.
Okay.
Bye for now.
Wait there, Henry. So,
Oh.
So anything else from Lantwit? No?
No,
Any questions? Any questions from Lantwit now? Right. Okay then, Henry. Why did Goff and Anne go?
They weren't sure whether you were coming back or not.
All right. Okay. All right then. Well, okay, Henry. Are we seeing you next week?
Yes. Yes, I think so. Yeah, should be okay for that.
Okay then. Brilliant, Henry. I'm gonna have to dash.
Yeah, I'll leave you to it. Have a good one.
You have a good one, Henry, and thanks for joining in. And I'll see you next Thursday. And we will do that stuff that you put online.
Yeah, bombarding you with more stuff.
Okay, please do.
Bye.
Take care. Thanks a lot. Everyone, don't forget to like and subscribe. And I'm just going to look at the stuff in the chat box. And we're going to read the stuff from the chat box. We are not seeing any images. Right, fair enough. Have you seen the Drum Dan Lintay desk-based assessment? So DRUIM Nan Lin Tian. You know what I'm going to do is put this on. I'm going to share this online now. I'm going to share that online because I think that's important. Can I share that online? Oh God, hang on, share my screen, share my screen. Start sharing now. If I go to the screen, and I'm very stressed at this minute because I've got to go. Right, so here we go. We're not seeing any images. Right, there we go. Have you seen the Drum Nan Lintay desk-based assessment staffing Eco 2021? So I'm going to do that. They seem to have found at least 10 sites in the area. So we're going to do that next week. Everyone, don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you very much. And we'll see you all next week. And next week it will still be this time, but then it's changing.